Welcome to K-Pastors Roundtable. I'm your host, Alec. Today, I'm speaking with Pastor David Kim. He is senior pastor of the Garden Church in Chatsworth. The Garden Church is English-speaking Korean American church. We will be talking about how to talk to someone that is not Christian and maybe can share good news with them. Hello, Pastor.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm doing good, thank you.
Good,
nice
good.
to be here again.
Yes. Today I wanted to ask you about how would you approach someone that is not a Christian to share the good news with them? How would you approach it? Because you have the second longest church as a second generation Korean in the United States. So lasting for 25 years, there's must be a reason why.
Well, I think evangelism or sharing with non-believers is really one of my passions. So from the very beginning, we always emphasized about reaching out to people who don't go to church or stop going to church. And when we first started, we did a lot of campus evangelism. So we were mostly college students. So we would go to the campus and just meet strangers and tell them about Jesus. But have a conversation, and then invite them to church or invite them to know Jesus. So we had some decent success, people coming to church and then eventually coming to Jesus. So that was the beginning. That's the way we started.
Mm-hmm. Now, when you approach them on campus, from pictures that I've seen or my personal experience, they usually sidestep you so that they don't talk to you directly.
Yeah. Well, one of the strategies we used was we had a survey. So we would do a survey of just finding out about people's spiritual life. And that's kind of a good way to just have a natural conversation. Mm-hmm. Actually, so it's been 25 years. I still go out to campus.
Wow.
And we go once a month and we do the survey. This time we give them a small gift for, completing like a $5 Starbucks card.
Oh, okay.
But we've had and because of that, people are willing to talk. And we've had some great conversations, and we've even had people to become Christian in those conversations.
So how long would you say your conversation with them lasts? 5 minutes, 10 minutes?
So usually when we've been going out, usually the average is about 15 minutes per person.
Okay.
Yeah, and we have good conversations. They really open up about their spiritual life. And then if they're open, then I can share my testimony and then share the gospel. And we've had some people accept Christ.
Your discussions with them under the survey method, is it challenging them in some ways, or do they have to really reach in deep and answer your questions, or what kind of questions would you ask?
Yeah, so I designed the survey, and the first question asked them about their spiritual background. And then after that, then I asked them what they think about the person of Jesus.
Okay.
So everybody has opinions, and so I just listened to them. And then based on that, that's an opportunity to share my spiritual background and then share the gospel about who Jesus is and what he's done. And then from there, I asked them if they would like prayer or if they would like to receive Jesus. And almost everybody is very, very open.
Wow.
Positive. So it's been a good experience.
Mm-hmm. Now, when they are receptive to your talking about Jesus, do they say, okay, I'm interested in getting to know you more or knowing more about Jesus? Or do they say, where's your church? Or do they go from there? Or most time they say, thank you very much and walk away?
Yeah, so it varies from person to person. We've had some people that are interested. One person, we just went out last week, and one person now he's a part of the church.
Wow.
After, he came, we invited him to the church. I invited him to the church. He came we had a missions testimony night, and then he came on Sunday. So that's not the normal, but
okay.
So we invite them to our groups, small groups, to our church. And we do the evangelism at CSUN, so that's pretty close to our church, a couple miles.
Right. Okay. Now, from last time I remember, your church has approximately 700.
About
500?
Yeah,
okay.
about 500.
So 500 members. Out of 500, how many would you say started with this non-Christian and became a Christian? Do you know that?
I don't have the exact numbers, but I would say probably at least, probably about 100 maybe 150 have become Christian.
Wow.
I think it's around that. I mean, I don't have the exact numbers, but we've placed an emphasis upon evangelism. And actually, the most effective way that we found for evangelism is through people getting to know other people in the church
Okay.
and coming. So not like a stranger evangelism like we do at the campus. That's not as effective. But just friends inviting friends to our small group and their small groups. They coming out for several months, sometimes even several years before becoming a Christian, but them finding community first.
Okay.
And then becoming a Christian.
Okay. Now, when they do become Christian, is there set programs do you have for them, or is there steps that you emphasize to them?
Yes, we do. So we have, our mission is to multiply disciples.
Okay.
And with different values. So that the actual mission statement is we'll multiply disciples who connect with God, who belong to one another, who grow in spiritual maturity, who serve others, and who share the gospel. And so people come to community, then hopefully they become believers in Jesus. And so they're part of the community group. Then we encourage them to be baptized, believers' baptism. So they get baptized. So this in a few weeks we'll be having a baptism. So we have that regularly, a few times a year. We'll be having 18 people getting baptized. And then we recommend people to do mentoring or one-on-one discipleship.
Okay.
And so that we pair them up with a lay leader, and they go through materials, discipleship materials together.
Okay.
Kind of like a spiritual trainer, mentor that they can walk alongside. And so as they grow, sometimes they do that for a few months, sometimes they do the mentoring for a few years, and then they also have classes they can take in our church, theology classes, and then if they mature, then they go into servant leadership track where they can actually then become leaders in the church.
Okay. Now, what you describe is a very wonderful program and steps. And as they become stronger in Christian, and many of our listeners are already Christians, is there any specific thing that you might remind them as a maintenance of their faith, or faith should always be growing, or what do you think, Pastor?
I think so. Well, faith needs to be active and growing, not stagnant. So I think that growth happens when people are involved in serving, and they're also continually learning about the Bible, learning more about God, and then being involved in ministry. So I think when you're involved in ministry, that helps you to keep growing.
Okay. When you say serving, what type of serving are you talking about, Pastor?
Yeah, so there's a lot of different ways we can serve both in the church and outside of the church.
Okay.
I think in the church, there's so many different ways. You could serve in the hospitality, you could serve in the worship team, you could serve in the AV team, audio video team. So many different ways that we encourage people to be involved in service team. So that's one of the ways. Then as they continue to grow, we encourage people to, serve their non-believing friends. We have a ministry called Meals on Wheels, where we, we provide meals to people that are going through difficult time. And so there's just a lot of ways that people can serve, but there's some official ways they can serve in the church too.
Is there other active serving that they can do outside of church, not pertaining to your church particularly, but different groups outside that you would recommend also?
Yeah, so we have people serving, with homeless ministries.
Okay.
And so serving in that way, partnered together with local nonprofits that are serving community and tutoring, different things like that. And then we have international opportunities. We have a lot of serving that's going on in Rwanda. And so we're always looking for opportunities to serve.
So how is the program going in Rwanda? Because last time you told me about the program there, and I look up your website. It's very interesting, the different bags and designs. Yeah. Is the sales going well, or?
I think it's going well, yeah.
Okay.
So that's been a great blessing. So hopefully that will continue to expand. And we're getting our young people involved. We had an internship program for kids to get involved in the ITARA. That's the SOA program. So it's a great opportunity. I think we just had a bunch of our team, maybe 13 people from the church, go to Rwanda this summer to serve. And that's actually not the sewing project, but that's the one with the dentist. It's called His Hands on Africa.
Right.
And he's the one him and his wife, Lita, are planning to move out there very soon. And so that was to support that ministry. There's just a lot of great opportunities.
Well, it sounds wonderful, all things going on within your church and also for your members. Now we can shift to more toward the non-Christians that's outside of your church.
Yes.
Maybe you can go visit them or maybe you can't talk to them, but let's say they're just listening to this program so what would you say to them?
Yeah, well, first of all, God loves you.
Yes.
God loves you so much that he sent his son to die on the cross for you, that you could have a relationship with him, both now and eternally. Yeah, to really give God a try. I think a lot of times people, they have different ideas about who Jesus is, or sometimes bad experiences of church.
Okay.
And so they close their mind or close their heart. But if people really could see how good God is, and experience him, experience his goodness, then that would make a big difference. And to really, discover who the person of Jesus is, because he was a historical figure, really look into research, the validity of the faith. Okay. And there's a lot of great resources that can help you. But it's a journey. It takes time. I think I've, learned that everybody has a different season and different time. So, yeah, it just takes time to just slowly take one step at a time towards God.
As you know, today's society, we have so much diversity.
Yes.
And different issues that's breaking up families or relationships or even affecting church.
Yes.
Do you have any personal opinion of how we can go about resolving some of the conflicts that we have in the society today? Or
yeah, it's a big
yeah.
There's so much, polarization and antagonism that people have towards one another, violence. I think the solution is, Jesus told us as believers that we're the salt and the light, to really be examples of Jesus' love and of his kindness. And I think that goes a long way. It means we definitely stand for truth. It's grace and truth. But the way that believers portray that truth is really, really important. Mm-hmm. And I think, wherever we go to have that, be that peacemaker and to be, a reconciler and to share the love of Christ, the kindness, gentleness, the fruit of the Spirit. I think that goes a long way in this big problem that we have. It's not the only solution. But if believers would genuinely not just take their political position or their stand for righteousness, say what they're against, and then that creates more hostility, and it doesn't really help the situation.
As someone that needs to become a peacemaker,
Yes.
How far would you recommend somebody to go in terms of, let's say, politically right now is a very polar society today between very conservative and very liberal, and there's like no middle grounds. So how would you say somebody, to play a peacemaker in that role of trying to bring two different parties? Because certainly that's true within church too. You have viewpoints that's very conservative and the viewpoint that's very liberal.
Yeah. Well, I think, again, I would emphasize just our character and the way that we relate to people. I think that's very huge, to be kind, to be considerate, to listen to others, even though we have a different opinion. To stand for what you believe based on what the Bible says, but the way that we communicate and the way that we interact with people, I think that's the way to be a peacemaker. You're still going to have people disagree with you,
right,
and there's nothing you can do about that, but we're called to love everybody.
Today, I'm speaking with Pastor David Kim. He is senior pastor of the Garden Church in Chatsworth. The Garden Church is English-speaking Korean American church. In your pastoring, has there anybody that came up to you and asked for your help in, let's say, they have a problem with addiction with the different areas?
Yes. So, I used to be, addicted to drugs when I was a teenager, mostly marijuana. So I have a heart for that. it takes a lot of resources, and it's a big problem.
Mm-hmm.
So we have people that we refer, out. I don't think we as a church are equipped to, deal with that on a large scale. But I think people can experience freedom from addiction through love, through community, but also through professional help. And so, that programs, professional counseling, going to, an addiction recovery center. So those are some of the things that we do.
There's different kind of therapists, secular and the Christian.
Yes.
So do you have resources for Christian therapists?
Yeah, so we refer people out. We work with the Asian American Christian Counseling Center.
Okay.
And so that's a great organization. We have a member in our church who's part of that. And I think Christian counseling. I really believe in counseling. I've seen a counselor really help me in my journey when I was going through struggles.
Mm-hmm.
So I think sometimes in the Asian community, seeing a counselor, maybe not so much now, but before there was some taboo.
Yes, stigma.
But I think it's kind of changed, fortunately.
Yeah, because one of the episodes that we did recently has to do with addiction. The guest was a pastor, so he was playing Christian and as a therapist.
Yeah.
And he says this is a very long process.
Yes.
And another part that he also brought that was really interesting to me is that as a pastor, if you have a problem and you go to your elder board and you tell them that you have this kind of addiction problem, most times you're out of a job.
Yeah, that's...
but is that true with the non-Korean churches also too, or is it just Korean churches, do you think?
Yeah, I guess it depends on the church. Probably in some of the more strict and conservative churches, that would be the case.
Mm-hmm.
But I think in a lot of churches, you would find support, more support. My board, the elder board, the board of at the church, when I was going through difficulties, was very supportive. And so they were supportive of me getting counseling and things like that.
Oh, good.
Thankful for that.
Okay. And then another issue right now seems to be tearing churches apart is issue with the LGBTQ.
Yes.
Has that affected your church at all, those issues?
Yeah, so there's, definitely. I think it affects everybody. So, I think the church in general has done a poor job with that issue, just being very harsh.
Yes.
And judgmental. I believe, in marriage between a man and woman.
Mm-hmm.
And so I have a conservative stand, but I think that we need to be much more embracing and loving LGBTQ community.
Right. Well, I've had discussion with someone in that community, and difficulty that I have is that they are not willing to admit LGBTQ actions is going against the God, let's say.
Yeah.
And so that's the part that I have a problem with. I have a problem with the person itself,
Sure.
but with their act.
Yeah.
And so that's where I have a stalemate in discussing things with them. I'm willing to listen to them. I'm willing to discuss different areas.
Yeah.
But, to define who they are from their actions
Yeah.
and not willing to change, that has been really difficult for me personally, dealing with them.
Yeah, that's definitely a challenge. As I shared earlier, I think that it's, how we communicate, and how we interact. So if we really show a genuine love of Christ, I think it makes a big difference.
Okay, good. Now, another issue that usually has a church torn apart is with the KM and EM ministry. Mm-hmm. Luckily, you're 100% EM ministry, so there isn't that much of a conflict, let's say.
Yes.
But for churches that have KM and EM,
yes,
what kind of advice would you give to the church itself?
Yeah, that's a real tough one. My wife, she wrote her book, A Faith of Our Own, on some of those conflicts. Mm-hmm. I think it really takes, the Spirit of Christ, humility on both sides, to really be able to listen to one another. And yeah, it's a real challenge. I think thankfully, being an independent church, we haven't had to, had that kind of conflict. So there's a lot more freedom. But it really takes on both sides, a flexibility, a humility, a willing to listen, a willing to compromise. And that would go a long way for there to be, success and harmony.
Is there Korean culture present in your church, or has that not been true?
Yeah, I mean, I'm Korean American, so you can't get away of, I mean, that's just a part of who we are, culture.
Right.
But we're not, we're primarily Asian American, becoming more and more fully multi-ethnic. So we have beyond Asian, maybe about 15%. So I think there's definitely some Asian culture there, some Korean culture there, just in the way we think. But it's not like a first generation. It's more like kind of a hybrid of, Western and Eastern culture. Yeah.
Do you guys enjoy Korean food within the church settings, or?
Yeah, sometimes we have Korean food, but not all the time. We'll
Okay.
have Korean food, Chinese food, Mexican food, American food. So we purposely don't have Korean food every time.
Uh-huh. Now, how about music? Is there music influence? K-pop is big these days.
Yeah, not really. Probably among the young people they like that, but I'm not really a K-pop fan. So. But so I mean, music influence worship, from Bethel and Hillsong, and those are the contemporary worship scene. I think we get a lot of influence from there.
As far as church is concerned, is there some goals that you might have for your church?
Yeah, so, we're really at an exciting place. I think in the history of our church, this is probably the most exciting time. We're going to be 25 years old, and it's almost like, in life, when you're 25, your life is ahead of you, and I feel like our best days are ahead. So I really see people really living out fully their calling, finding out what their passion is, and just really going for it, for God. I see, hopefully there'll be a lot of more church plants, new church plants that we're going to start.
Right.
Missionaries that will send, local ministries that will begin, serving the community. So we'll see. It's, our church name is The Garden, so we'll see what comes forth from the ground.
Because I know you planted church in Arizona, and last time you said you're visiting the church there
Yeah.
for their anniversary. So how did that go?
Oh, that was great. Yeah, it was a great celebration. It was wonderful to see, they turned one,
Okay.
and the church is growing. There's new people.
Wow.
And, it takes time, but, the church is doing well. So that was very, very exciting, and it was a blessing.
Okay, good. Is there another location that you're looking at right now as possible planting church?
Right now, we're just praying, but there's no specific location. There are some people in the church that have a heart for church planting.
Wow.
So my role is to mentor them and to help develop, them as church planters, and then in the right time, we'll develop a team, and then we'll send them out to wherever God's calling them to.
Is there any guide for how far they should be going, or is it another state? Or
No, I mean, it could be 10 minutes away, or, Santa Clarita, I don't know, or it could be, in another country. We haven't done church planting in another country, but it could be, we send out missionaries. But so it's just totally open, where there's a need, where the church planter has a heart for, and most of all, where God is leading.
is a church planting based on a person that says, okay, I'm going to now go out and plant a church? Or
Yeah, so
you
that's
say,
that's usually that's the way we've done it. So it's based upon, because the church plant is going to be led by a person. So, and we really try to keep things like organic. So through relationships that we have. So we wouldn't have somebody from the outside saying, I want to plant a church, can you support me? But more like from within the church,
Okay.
because that's more like a natural, and I think it's more fruitful.
and from what I understand, you have actually missionaries out in the field too?
So we had some missionaries to Japan.
Okay.
So they were there for 9 years.
Wow.
And then they just came back. So Pastor Mike Yamamoto and his wife Mayu. And so now they're back on church staff. So they
Okay.
finished their assignment there, and they came back just a few months ago.
How did that mission go in Japan?
Oh.
From what I understand, it's a
Yeah.
very difficult areas to...
Yeah, I think it bore fruit. Many people came to know Christ. They were actually serving together with an international church.
Oh, okay.
So Pastor Mike was on staff there, and they bore fruit. It was fruitful, and but Japan is a difficult there's only like a little more than 1% Christian.
Right.
So we still have some people there that are serving and in a kind of a bivocational lay leadership. So in Japan.
Yeah, because the country itself has a lot of deities and
Yeah.
a lot of images of different areas of their life
Yeah.
supposed to pray for. So
Yeah, like 8 million gods.
right,
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
right.
So,
Okay.
but there's hope with the young people. I think with the young people in Japan, I think there's more hope for the young people because they're more open. They're not as stuck to their traditions.
All right. Well, I mean, sounds wonderful of all the things you're doing with your church and through your church. And I thank you because our time is up.
Okay, great. It's been a blessing again to share and have this kind of fellowship. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Pastor. Today, I wanted to share these words with you before we closed. Have you ever prayed to and felt as if your prayers weren't answered? Have you ever gotten on your knees, clasped your hands together, prayed to God, and felt as if God simply didn't hear you? You ask for something, and it is as if He's not even listening. You dial the prayer hotline, and all you get is a voicemail as if He's not there. Is He there? Does He even exist? The answer is yes. But just because we didn't get what we asked for doesn't mean He didn't answer our prayers or that He doesn't exist. A lot of people think God doesn't answer prayers because some things don't go their way. What they don't realize is that God did answer their prayers. He just said no, wait, or we simply weren't paying attention. Sometimes the answer is no. Have you ever asked your parents for something and they said no? Did you question whether or not they replied? Probably not. It's the same thing with God. Sometimes He just says no. We have to stop thinking is that no means an unanswered prayer. A parent who gives their child everything they want spoils them to no end. And when it's time for that child to be on their own, they will be looking around for someone to take care of them because they are unable to stand on their own. But our Heavenly Father is much different. As much as we complain, pout, kick, and scream, we won't always get what we want. Why? Because He wants us to be independent. He's testing our faith to make sure we can stand strong when things don't go our way. He wants us to know that when things get hard, we can be firm and trust that He will meet our needs. How else would we learn to trust God if we know He will always give us what we ask? How can we stand firm as believers if we treat God as a crutch? But sometimes when He says no, it's because He wants what's best for us. What we ask for isn't always what's best for us at the moment or at all. That dream job you've been waiting for may just be a nightmare. At times, what appears to be greener on the other side may not be so green after all. Sometimes the grass on the other side is hiding bad roots. Sometimes the grass is hiding patches. Sometimes we just aren't listening. K-Pastors Roundtable is a discussion program for today's English-speaking Koreans and Christians. We will discuss the current issues and important issues dealing with our community. Your participation is very important to us. You can send in your questions or comments via email kprt316@gmail.com. You can hear our program on AM 1190 in Southern California on Saturday and Sunday at 1:30 p.m. You can also find us on YouTube channel K-Pastors Round Table. Please join us. Thank you.